Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we are going to look at again Python programming basics. Again, not too much into the programming bit. We're looking at the print command and we're looking at the separator and the end parameters. Yeah. So basically, when you use a normal print command, let's say we've looked at print command in the previous video. So when you say print a dog and then comma cat, right? And then these need to be in quotes, yeah. Just ignore this quote here. So dog comma cat in quotes. The output will be dog, and then there'll be a space here, and then it'll print cat. Now this space here, remember in the last video I told you that with the print command, the default separator is a space. Now you'll understand why I said that when I go into the syntax for the separator command. So let's say instead of space here, you wanted to use an exclamation mark between dog and cat. You didn't want a space. So what would you do? You cannot say print dog comma cat and then expect an exclamation mark to appear out of nowhere. So you need a command. That's when we use the sep parameter with the print command. So the syntax is you'll say print and open brackets because it's a function. And then I'm going to say dog and then use a comma because that's part of the syntax. If you need to print multiple things within a print command, you're going to use a comma. This comma will leave a space. That's something that we discussed. And then I'm going to say cat, right? And I'm going to leave a comma here. And now I'm going to use the sep command or the sep parameter with the print command. Sep equal to, and then I'm going to open quotes and I'm going to say I need an exclamation mark. So if you simply leave an exclamation mark, it's not going to work. You need to do this. Now, when you type this, your output will be dog, exclamation, cat, right? So now I'm just going to show you what this is going to look like in Python. So this is the shell window because we'll see the output then and there. So I'm just going to do it there. This is a good thing that this thing came up here because now you'll be able to see the difference. So the first command here, we know dog, cat, and separator with an exclamation mark. So instead of a space, we simply got an exclamation mark there. Why did we not have a space? Because the very purpose of using the separator parameter with the print command is, with the print function, is to replace the space with something else. So that is why you don't have the space here. Next is just print dog and cat. And here you can see we have not used the sep parameter with the print, but by default, we can notice that the separator in the output is a space. So from that, we can conclude that when you're using the print statement on its own without any separator, the default separator is a space. Now, how we can prove that is if you look at this statement here, I've added dog and then cat, so that's obviously printed. And then I've given sep equal to, and then I've separated it with a space in between. So when I use a space in between, this gets printed. And when you simply say print dog and cat, it also prints the same thing. So when you look at this command here and compare it with this command here, they both return the same output. And from them two equations, we can conclude, not equations, commands, we can conclude that the default separator is a space for the print command or the print function. I hope that makes sense. It's just like saying A equals B, B equals C, so A equals C. It's just the same logic. So here, if you notice, I was trying to add in a space, but I couldn't. For some reason, I couldn't. And it has printed dog and cat without a space because I said, so normally when you use the print function, what gets displayed? A space gets displayed because that's the default separator. But here I said no space. If you want to tell the program that you want no space, then add a quote and add another quote. So open and close your quotes without anything in between. So there's nothing here. There's just a blinking cursor, but here you can see there's a space. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to do that. Do you see that? There's a space here, but over here we have no space. And that is why it took out the space in between. I hope this part of the syntax is clear. What is the other thing that you can observe from these statements? Yeah, so you've got sep equal to something at the end. You never add, you don't say dog and then add sep in between and then say cat, because that's going to give you a syntax error. So that's the next thing that's in your textbook. So we're just going to go back to our board and we'll see what it says. So we've just covered this. Now, there is a syntax that is given with the print function. We're just going to look at that syntax, which is in the textbook. So value, space, value, whatever, and then blah, 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 blah. You can have anything there, so I'm just leaving it like that. And then a comma, and let's just do red. Feel like changing the color. And then I'm going to use sep equal to, and I'm just going to use, there's a space here, yeah, there's a space. If you don't imagine that there's no space there, there is a space there. And in the textbook, they are also using the end parameter with print. We will look into that just in 2 minutes. And then the last bit is file something, which is optional. And I don't even think that's in your syllabus. So let's just forget that bit. This is the main portion and you never use the file bit anyway, so that's not important. Looking at this syntax here. So values are listed. Now, why do you think they have come up with this explanation? Because this syntax here tells you that values need to come first. Whatever needs to be printed needs to go first. Separator goes after that, and then the end command goes after the sep command. Now, we will see what happens when we interchange this, and if it works or not. That is something that we need to check. But for now, this is a syntax. So, what is the difference between the sep parameter and the end parameter? So, when it comes to the sep parameter, you are telling the program what needs to be appended between the values. So when you say, what is the syntax again? So it was print values, value, it can be a number or a string. In this case, I'm assuming they're all strings. And then I'm doing sep equal to space and then end equal to, I'm just doing \n here. We'll go into what \n is in a while. Now, if you look at all of these, the sep command here decides what needs to go in between these two. In between, what needs to be appended in between the values. And the end command, on the other hand, it looks at what needs to go after the last value. So this is value 1, this is value 2, this is value 3. The sep will decide what goes between 1 and 2 and 2 and 3, but the end will decide what goes at the end of 3. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's just the sep and end. Here, if I can add an exclamation mark, and then that would mean that every value will be separated with an exclamation, and it would also end with an exclamation. That's just the basics there. And again, as I said, it needs to be the sep parameter must be mentioned after the values, not before, because otherwise it will just give you a syntax error. That there is an example in your textbook in relation to this. So they've just given a simple command. So it's print 10, 20, 30, and then sep equals asterisk sign, comma, 40. So these are the values, all of these, and separator is in the middle. This will return a syntax error because the values need to go first and the sep command needs to come after. How do we know that? Because we just learned the syntax to use the sep command. The values go first and after we have the sep command and then the end. We'll see what happens when we interchange it later. The end parameter is what we use to describe what needs to come after the value when you use a print statement, right? And the default value of the end parameter is \n. So the default value of the sep command was a space. The default value of the end parameter is \n. \n stands for new line character. So it just jumps to the next line. This is an MCQ question. It can come in your exams for 1 mark. So please make note of that. So if, for example, we are trying this statement here. So print cat, comma, dog, and then I'm using sep, exclamation, end. Now, if you notice, for those who have no clue about the sep and the end ones, if you notice, I've used sep and end without quotes because they are they mean something to Python. They're not strings. So if you notice, print is not in quotes, sep not in quotes, end not in quotes. So I hope that's making sense. I mean, if you watch the videos from the beginning, then you wouldn't have um, a lot of confusion because you get used to how you see it. But if in case you have any questions, doesn't matter how stupid the question is, how silly the question is, ask them in the comments and clear them out, because that's how you learn. So I appreciate anyone asking questions. So cat, dog, sep, end, and I am going to use 3 exclamation mark and a backslash n. What would be the output? So how are we going to think? So it says print cat, dog, so values first, and then sep first, and then end next. So obviously the syntax is correct. What are we going to do? So print the values first, cat, and what's the sep command say? Put an exclamation mark, so you're doing an exclamation, and then dog, and then after dog, do you leave an exclamation? No, you don't. Why? Because it's the last one in the value section. So if it's the last one, then you don't add a separator. Separator means in between two strings or in between the values. So you're not going to add this. Instead, you're going to now look on what the end command says. What does the end command say? 3 exclamation marks, and it also says new line character. So what does that mean? What does that mean? Would it mean you'll have a backslash n displayed here? Or do you think it'll just go to the next line? Or would it be something like this? That is a tricky one for those who have not seen what the backslash n does on Python. So again, we are going to go back to Python and we'll see what it does. So I'm going to use the shell mode here so it's easy to see. Let's just copy this one here. So dog, cat. Let's do the third one as a bird. And then sep equals, let's do an exclamation mark. And now we're going to use the end parameter. So that's equals, I'm just going to do quotes open and then backslash n. So I need to find where backslash is on my keyboard. There you go, backslash n. And then enter. So now if you notice, the answer is dog, exclamation, cat, exclamation, and after bird, there's no exclamation because that's the last word. When you've said backslash n within quotes, that means something to Python. It doesn't interpret it as just backslash n. So if you would have said backslash o, it would have displayed backslash o. But if you say backslash n, that means new line character to Python. So it wouldn't display that on its own. So if you do that, it displays backslash o, or if you add any other letter there, it would do that. But because you said n, it's not going to display that. Instead, it's going to go to new line. So backslash n means just go into the new line. Okay, and that is why it's just gone over to the new line. So we'll just try the same command in script mode. There you go, it's working now. So dog, cat, and bird, and it's just going to the next line. It's not leaving a blank line. That is when you use print. If you do print and do this, that's going to leave a blank line. So let's just see what the output is for this one. So you can see there is a blank line that has been displayed. Backslash n means new line character. It doesn't mean that Python's going to print a blank whole line there. It means it's just going to jump to the next line. Jump to the next line. Right, so when you say backslash n within quotes, Python doesn't display it within quotes. It means something to Python. Like that's an exception. It means new line character. So when you use backslash n, Python wouldn't print it. Instead, it'll just go to the next line and then it'll just display the prompt there. That's it. That's what backslash n does. Now we will have a look at the output in Python so we can avoid any confusion. I have some examples right here so we can have a look. Okay, so now let's just look at print with nothing in brackets. Now that prints a new line character. So like we just discussed before, with print, when you use the end command or the end parameter, so the print command always has the sep parameter and the end parameter attached to it. If you don't use it, then that means sep is going to be space, end is going to be new line character. So when I say print open close brackets, that means the sep command here is a space and the end command here is a \n. So what do you think it is going to print? It's just going to print a new line, because again, by default, print with nothing in brackets means a new line character. And why does it mean that? Because print with nothing, so if you look here, there's just one new line, right? So this is the same as saying print, and then let's say you have some values there, so 1 2 sorry 1 2 and 3, these are like values 1 2 and 3, and then let's say sep equal to, and then separator is always a space, and then by default what is the end parameter equal to? It's equal to \n. So this, when you say print with nothing in brackets, it means you're saying print, I'm just going to take 1 2 3 off, because you are saying print sep equal to this, end equal to \n. That's what you're saying. So it prints a new line character. If that's the case, what would print with \n print? Because print command on its own is going to print one new line. So if you add a \n in between, do you think it'll print \n on the output? Obviously, we saw that here, so you know that's not the case. It's not going to do that. What else is it going to do? Is it going to add another new line character? We'll have a look. So when you look at the output, this is the output you got when you did print on its own. So one new line, it's jumped to the prompt. This is when you use print, and within the print you've used \n. So this is for the print command where you normally have a new line character in place, and this is for the \n that you've used within the print. So there's two lines, that's two line breaks that has been created here, and then you have the prompt. So now these are the basics that you have to keep in mind. Now I was also not very sure about what this is going to do, but I had a question in my mind that popped up, so I just tried and I found out what the difference is. So this is how you learn, and if you have any questions, try it out, see what happens, work around it, and you will get to your answer. If you need any help, let me know and I'm more than happy to help. Okay, so let's just look at this example here. This is a print command. We've used the normal syntax where we have the strings here that needs to be displayed separated by commas. We've got a sep command and an end command. So the sep comes first and the end comes towards the last, which makes sense because ending something towards the end and not in the middle, and sep comes in the middle. Like we discussed before, we need to check what happens if we put the end in the beginning and then sep towards the end. Will it really make a difference? Will it give you an error message or not? First of all, let's try the correct syntax and see what it prints. Okay, so the output here is cat %%, dog %%, and hi, and it has ended with a \n, which means it has just gone to a new line character, and you can't really see it. It's just taken the cursor to the next line. Let me just try that with 3 exclamation marks. So it's like we're actually overriding it with something else. So run module and OK. And the answer this time, we've got 3 3 exclamation marks at the end. Now let's try and see what happens when we change the order of the sep and the end command. So if we use the end first and then sep towards the end, what happens? So you click on save. So you can see it has done the exact same thing. There's no errors in the output, and end is still the same, 3 exclamation marks, sep, you've used 2 percentages in between the strings. All of that is correct. So both of these statements will give you an output. It's just that in the actual program, they've been interchanged. So they really don't mean a thing. But in your exams, if you ever get a question to say, write the syntax, use the first format because that's the one you have in your textbooks and in your syllabus, I believe. So just stick to the first one. But again, in your output questions, if you ever get the end interchanged like this, then you know that it'll give you the same answer. So just keep that in your mind, just as a FYI. And now I'm just going to do another trick question here. We've got two lines of programs here. One ends with three exclamation marks and the other one is the same one but interchanged. Now, what do you think will be the output? Will we get this output in two different lines, or do you think we'll get the same output in one single line, and why? You can pause and think, but I'm going to give you the answer now. So let's click on run module, and yes. So cat, percentage dog, percentage high, ended with three exclamation marks. And then we've got the second print line printed right after the first one. It has not gone to the next line. Why do you think the program has done that? It's because when we use the end command and replace it with something other than the default parameter, just to remind you, the default parameter with the end command is \n, which is a new line character. When you replace it with three exclamation marks, what the program is thinking is, okay, we've done cat, dog, hi. Okay, now she's asked me to end it with three exclamation marks instead of going to the next line. So they ended with three exclamation marks instead of going into the next line. So where is your cursor? Is it here or is it here? It's after the exclamation mark, so it's on the same line. Then what's your next command? Print cat, dog, hi, and the same one with ending the same one. So again, end command ends the cursor here. So after the first command, because your cursor is here, that's why the second set of command prints right after that on the same line. It wouldn't print on two different lines. Now, just to show you what I mean by when I say replacing the default value will be \n, right? So you click on that, click on run module and press yes. You can see that it goes in two separate lines. Now, what I'm going to do is copy this, do Control C, Control V, and what do you think is going to be the output now? So this \n is pretty much the same as not using this command at all, because by default it is \n. So it's going to go to the next line. This one, because you're using an end command and you're replacing it with something else, it's going to say on the same line, and then it's going to print this one with a \n. So that'll go to the next line. So the answer is it's going to be on two different lines. So if you click on run and then save, the first one, it had a \n, so it's gone to the next line. It's printed the second set of print commands there. And because you used three exclamation marks with the end and replaced it with a normal one, it's printed it on the same line. And you can see the output here. And this is printed with a \n, which is by default, it's just taken to the next line. So you can't really see the blank line there because it's just a default parameter. Now, we've just discussed this, so this part is done. I hope that was clear. You can try out different examples and see why it's doing what. Okay, so that's it for the video. I hope we have covered examples and have explained everything to you. Now, all I want you to do is try different examples on your Python program. Try different examples, try different characters. Just do what you've learned. And if you have any questions, try them out, see what comes up. That's how you learn. And in the next video, we will be covering your main Python programming fundamentals. So that is where we actually start doing a little bit of programming. Again, the first few lessons will be a little bit of theory because you need to know about the character sets and the variables and the data types and all of that. But after we finish that stage, we'll get into programming where things will start to get a little bit more interesting. But for now, as long as you're clear on what we've learned, that is what matters. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.